Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is your video presentation for your upcoming assessment task. Um, just a little bit of context. We're in the last few weeks of our unit of work on the Great Race to Discover Australia. For your last task, what I want you to do is explain to the world and to me why George Bass and Matthew Flinders are two of the most influential explorers to ever stumble across Australia's shores. So you might be wondering, why do you need to be assessed? Why am I assessing you? Well, there are a few reasons. As your teacher, it's my job to observe and record on how you're progressing. Everyone in Year 4 across Australia has to complete a work on a world explorer and the impact that they've had on a particular culture or society. For this last assessment task, really what it's doing for you and for me, it's letting me see how you're going, and it lets me identify if you need a little bit of extra time to study this content or if you're ready to move on to the next task. So the goal of this assessment piece is for me to give you some critical feedback on how you're progressing in your history learning, but also it's an opportunity for you to demonstrate everything we've learned over the last few weeks in one last final piece. So what have we learned so far? What have we learned before this assessment piece? So far we looked at George Bass and Matthew Flinders. We did a little bit of research into their lives, where they were born, where they began their journey, and what they discovered as they explored Australia, but also what was known at the time as Van Diemen's Land. In another lesson we participated in, we acted as ship inspectors to map the journey of Matthew Flinders and George Bass. We mapped the important destinations in their journey, the key dates in their travel, which was quite fun for all of us. I think we all had a really good time with that lesson. Another lesson we participated in, we looked at the interactions between Bass, Flinders, and the Indigenous Australians that they encountered along their journey. We did this by writing a letter to Lieutenant Colonel William Patterson. This was a really fun opportunity for us to explore some historical perspectives by using the research we had already done, to write a message to Patterson, just to inform him of what he may expect in a few years when he lands on the shores of Van Diemen's Land. In terms of Indigenous peoples living on the land, particularly at Port Dalrymple. Moving on to the next slide. What will the assessment task cover? So there are a few things that I'm really looking for in this assessment task. One of these criteria, I really need you to demonstrate your knowledge of the timeline of experiences that George Bass, Matthew Flinders, and also some of the Indigenous Australians that they encountered along the way had. I'll also need you to demonstrate your knowledge about why these explorers set out on their voyage, the impact it had for Indigenous Australians that they encountered, and also what it meant for us in our knowledge of the geographical layout of Australia. What changed after Matthew Flinders and George Bass discovered some aspects of Australia? You'll need to justify your reasoning with historical sources, incorporate historical perspectives at the time to demonstrate your knowledge of the content, and any other evidence you come across in your research. Some of the skills I'm looking to assess in this assessment task is your ability to communicate, to research historical events using ICT, your teamwork skills, your use of critical and creative thinking in your presentations, and just your ability to interact with one another as a group member. Moving on to the next slide. So how will you complete the task? So the idea of this assessment piece is that you will develop a poster and a supporting oral presentation. And what you need to do with these presentations, you need to persuade the reader that George Bass and Matthew Flinders should be inducted in the Explorers Hall of Fame. So to effectively persuade the reader, you'll have to incorporate your knowledge of a persuasive text type. So I want your presentation to follow that kind of structure. and it will be presented in groups of 4 and as a pitch to the whole class. The last slide. So you might be wondering how you're going to submit this assessment task. So your assignment will be due on the 26th of May. So from this Friday, that gives you 2 weeks, and in class time you'll be given 4 half-an-hour lessons to complete the assessment task. If you want to work on this assessment task at home or collaborate outside of school, that's okay. I'm happy for you to do that, but it's not necessary. The time you have in class is more than enough for you to do well in this piece. For you to use your time wisely when you're working on this task, I suggest that each member of the group should be assigned a component of the poster and pitch to research and bring back to the group. And also, I suggest that all of you work together on developing your pitch. So I hope this video presentation has given you a good idea about what we're going to do for our assessment task, how you need to do it, what will be assessed, why it's important that I'm assessing you, and also how you can submit your task. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to see the work that you'll produce. Thank you.